Hi everyone, this is a very special story. It's all about my granddad Len, and I hope you like it. It's called Daddy's Weekend with Len. Here we go. It was a Friday, and that meant a trip into town for Mrs. Hindle. Today, she was taking the bus with her good friends, Shirley and Viv. She had her usual shopping list of bread, mince, potatoes and pork chops, which she scribbled down on a piece of paper, nestled inside her glasses case. Meanwhile, back home in the garden of number 29 Queen's Road, Mr. Hindle had the morning and afternoon to himself, and he was making the most of that. He was busy mowing the lawn and trimming his hedges. He was turning his home into a castle. His hedges now had turrets, causing much amusement to his neighbours. "Morning, Len," said a voice from the garden next door. "Where's the moat?" They chuckled to themselves. It was Charlie Fowler. He was pottering about in his greenhouse. Although Charlie was old, he was a very funny character. He had a great sense of humour. Len and Charlie had been next-door neighbours for a very long time. They often enjoyed bantering with each other over the garden fence. After mowing his lawns and trimming the hedges, Len cleaned out his bird cage, which was built attached to his shed. Inside it, he kept budgies and cockatiels. Mr. Hindle loved his birds, and so did his grandchildren. They always came to look at them whenever they visited. Just as Len was refilling the water for the birds, a familiar face crawled out from the floorboards of the shed. It was Daddy Shortlegs. He was feeling hungry and looking for something to eat. "Oh, it's you," smiled Mr. Hindle. "Hungry again, are we? Here, have some breadcrumbs. I was saving some for the birds." Daddy happily stuffed his face. It wasn't long before the last breadcrumb was gone. "You're a hungry little bugger, aren't you?" laughed Len. Daddy just grinned. He had crumbs all over his face. Just then, Mr. Hindle had a thought. "How would you like to spend the weekend with me?" he asked. "I'll make sure you'll have plenty to eat." Daddy smiled. Soon, Mrs. Hindle returned home on the bus, with her shopping bags full of food. She had a lovely morning catching up with the latest gossip. After packing away all the food in her cupboards, Joyce and Viv enjoyed another chinwag over a cup of tea. They were very close friends. After that, she began to prepare tea for the grandchildren. They were due home from school soon. "Mince and tatties for tea tonight." The grandchildren arrived, and number 29 was buzzing with fun and laughter. Len was telling jokes and pulling funny faces. His grandchildren thought he was hilarious. Friday night, and Mrs. Hindle went to bingo with Shirley, whilst Mr. Hindle went up to the sports club for a few pints of beer and a game of snooker. At the club, he had his very own spot, where he sat every time. It was under the big TV in the corner. As you opened the door to the club, the first person you'd see would be him, pint glass in hand, smiling and joking next to his friends, Reg, CJ and Dave. Tonight, another special friend was at the club, sharing a drink with him. He was also called Dave, and Shirley's husband. Dave was a brilliant man, very quiet, but he also had a very funny sense of humour. He and Len got on like brothers. "I miss you, Grandad." Daddy sat on the TV stand, watching as Len and his friends played cards, drinking beer and reminiscing about old times. Soon, some of his grandchildren turned up, asking to play a game of snooker with him. "Come and watch a professional at work," he laughed to Daddy. So he crawled his way into the snooker room. Mr. Hindle really enjoyed playing snooker. "What a player," he would say, talking about himself. He taught a lot of his grandchildren how to play the game. "Hit the ball gently! I said gently! That wasn't bloody gently," he would say. He did get frustrated sometimes. His grandchildren just enjoyed every second of playing against him. Daddy wanted to have a go, but he couldn't hold the cue. So he sat on top of the black ball, watching Len attempting to pot some balls. "These bloody pockets aren't big enough," he joked. Mr. Hindle's snooker skills were questionable, but after 3 pints of beer, he was a completely different player. He potted every ball he aimed for, even the black. Daddy rolled into the pocket, and the ball landed on top of him. Splat! "What are you doing in there?" laughed Len. And he picked up Daddy's squashed body and placed him into his top shirt pocket. "Ha! You'll be safer in here," he smiled. Saturdays were very busy for the Hindles. In the mornings, Mr. Hindle went to work at the local car dealership and garage, helping to wash and clean vehicles. That kept him out of mischief for a little while at least. On Saturday afternoons, with Mrs. Hindle at bingo, again, in town, Len went to watch his local football team play, home and away. The team meant a lot to him, especially as some of his children and grandchildren played in the team. You see, Mr. Hindle was a very enthusiastic supporter. Some might say over-enthusiastic. You would often hear him bellowing out instructions from the sidelines, shouting out orders, and he wasn't even the manager. "Pass the bloody ball," he would shout. "Gary, get back on your line. You're not a bloody striker." Daddy had been watching the game with him, sitting on his shoulders. Len's shouting was so loud and persistent, Daddy had to plug his ears with cotton wool to block it all out. The players often got annoyed with him and told him to either shut up or go home, and they were usually his family members. Oh dear. Every weekend, he took some of his grandchildren along to watch the games with him. Spending Saturday afternoons with Len, for them, was an experience in itself, but it also made them very, very happy. They looked forward to spending time with him every week. Despite all of his shouting and hollering during games, the players appreciated his loyal support. He even drove the team minibus to away cup games too, where he would fall out with the opposition linesman, causing a lot of riots from the sidelines. "No way was that offside, Lino! What game you watching?" And it wasn't just on Saturdays that he watched the football. He watched on Sunday mornings too. He was a founder member of the sports club, and he will always be remembered for being extremely funny, kind, passionate, loyal, and very, very vocal. He was a legend. I love you, Grandad. And that's the end of the story. Hope you enjoyed it. I'll see you again next time.